Yo, what's going on, people? My name is Logic and welcome back to yet another video. In today's video, what I wanted to do is give you guys some talking points with respect to proper watering techniques. So I wanted to speak about some of the things that you want to be making sure that you're doing and checking on when it comes to watering your houseplants. So the number one thing you're gonna want to check for is that you're gonna want to make sure that your pot has drainage holes. I spoke about this in a video too before, but I cannot stress the importance of drainage hose enough. Drainage hose ensure that any of the excess water inside of your pot can have a way to exit out of it. Without the drainage hose, the soil would have to rely on the process of evaporation to get any excess water out of the pot, and more often than not, evaporation is a super slow process, so it may not happen in time to save the roots of your plant before it comes to processes such as root rot, pests, etc. So number two is that you're gonna want to make sure that you know your plant. You're gonna want to make sure that you know how often your plant likes to be watered. How long can it go in between waterings? How long does it like to go in between waterings? For example, everybody knows about succulents, and everybody knows that succulents like to go longer periods of time without being watered, as opposed to maybe a tropical plant such as the Monstera deliciosa. They're obviously gonna want to be watered more often because they don't have that same design mechanism within their leaves. Number three is that you're gonna want to make sure that you're doing your finger test. Now you're gonna want to get familiar with finger test because in my opinion is one of the most important tools in your arsenal, and is one that you don't even need to pay for. Really quick, I'm gonna show you guys how easy it is to conduct a finger test. Okay, so here I have my variegated red ruby rubber plant. Wow, that's a lot to say. Doing a finger test is as easy as taking your finger, digging it 1 or 2 inches into the soil, and feeling out for yourself, kind of getting a general sense of whether or not the soil is on the drier side or on the moister side. Some of the quick ways to decide whether or not your soil is on the moist or dry side is that moist soil tends to be more on the cooler side. I think that most of us have dealt with touching moist soil 1 or 2 times in the past before, so you should have a sense of how it feels. On the opposite end of the spectrum, dry soil is gonna be dry to the touch. If your soil is really dry, then it's gonna have almost like a sandy texture or consistency to it. Really gritty. It's easy to differentiate the two. And the reason that I say you wanna dig it 1 or 2 inches into the soil is that the top layer of the soil is not a good way to indicate whether or not the plant needs to be watered, because the top layer is gonna be the one that evaporates the quickest. But you want to make sure that you're checking in on the middle layer of the soil to see whether or not it really does need to be watered. And then my next step for you guys is that you're gonna wanna make sure that you're watering thoroughly. So what I mean by that is that you're going to wanna make sure that when you're watering the plant, you're watering it until the point where the water actually exits the drainage hole. That's how you know that when you watered it, it went from the top layer of soil all the way to the bottom, and that all of the roots in between those 2 points have received proper moisture. I generally like to advise against watering in specific quantities, because when you're watering that way, it does actually have some room for error. Say you watered it too little and the soil didn't reach to the bottom, and that may lead to underwatering, which we all know is very bad for your plant. Now some people feel a bit icky or weird about like watering it this much, but the reason that I say it's totally fine is that your drainage hole is gonna make sure that any water that does not belong in the pot is gonna exit the pot. Think of it like a club bouncer. If somebody doesn't belong there, the bouncer is gonna get them out of there. The same way, if the water does not belong in the pot, or if it's too much water, then the drainage hole is gonna ensure that it has a way to exit out. It has that doorway so that it can exit the pot. Think of it like filling to capacity. Once you're filling up a cup, there's gonna be a certain point where it's reached the maximum capacity and everything else is gonna spill over. It's the same kind of concept. And then next, if you have a saucer, you want to ensure that you're emptying the saucer whenever you have the chance. You may need to end up repeating the process a few times, because as the day moves on and as the hours move on from when you watered it, it may actually leak a little bit more water. You want to make sure that you're tossing any water out of the saucer, because most plants actually don't like to be sitting in a saucer full of water. It may lead to root rot. And then finally, once you're done with all of that, congratulations, you have successfully watered your plant, and you want to make sure that you're keeping track of when you did this and repeating the process for the next time. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the finger test so that you can tell whether or not it's time for you to water your plant. Of course, you can have your watering schedules, and that's fine and all, but I generally like to consider watering schedules to be a point of reference and not a rule of thumb. Just because there's so many different factors that may lead to the watering schedule becoming unreliable. Maybe it gets a bit warmer in the summer and the pot ends up evaporating quicker. The water within the soil ends up evaporating, exiting the pot quicker. And for that reason, you may need to end up increasing the frequency at which you're watering your pot. So yes, that is it for this video, guys. I hope that it was beneficial. If it was, make sure that you leave a thumbs up down below. Also, make sure that you comment if you have any questions or concerns regarding this process, or if you have any comments in general. And if you're not subscribed already, make sure that you do so. Alright people, that was it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, peace.